It's all quiet in the underground bunker. Doors closed, locks bolted. But the Great One isn't just resting on his laurels. He's making sure your weekend is even better by giving you his best. This is the best of Mark Levin.
Man, I'll tell you what, there is a lot of hell breaking loose all over the world. We're going to talk about Iran, now in Syria. You know, that guy that was part of, what was it, ISIS, I guess he was, or Al-Qaeda. And everybody told us he's reformed. He's told our government he's reformed. And so all these sanctions that were placed on Syria were dropped. You got an envoy there, Thomas Barak, who is a disgrace and a disaster. I've called him out many times on this program and on social media. He's been an apologist for a lot of these terror organizations. I feel he's deceived the American people on many occasions. Again, it's not a secret. You know that I feel this way. And even more. But what's happening right now is Erdogan, who is the fascist, Islamist, genocidal maniac who's destroyed Turkey and their government, is behind this effort, working with this phony reformer, this terrorist who runs Syria, to ethnically cleanse the Kurds. And about 2 hours ago, the main prison in which about 5,000 ISIS prisoners are held, did you see that, Mr. Producer? They're gone now. They've been released. That's right. Gone and been released. Now, to make matters even worse, Saudi Arabia and Qatar, you should know, have opposed the United States taking military action to help stop the Iranian holocaust that's taking place, and it's still taking place. And Qatar and Saudi Arabia have persuaded our administration to drop all the sanctions against Syria. And so you could say they have blood on their hands too. Meanwhile, we've set up this board of peace to deal with Hamas in Gaza. And among the countries invited are Qatar and Turkey to serve on the board. And Benjamin Netanyahu obviously is going to protect his people in his country, and he said no. They didn't even tell us, the administration, that they were appointing these two, and there will be no Turkish troops or Qatari troops of any kind in Gaza. Now remember, Gaza used to be part of Israel, even ancient Israel, 4,000 years ago. And the Israelis carved it out for the Palestinians, who then, of course, used it to kill Israelis. And Israel says, we're not going to allow Turkey and Qatar, the two biggest supporters of Hamas, still protecting their billionaire bosses, to put an army on our border after we lost 1,000 troops, which is equivalent to us losing 35,000 troops. It's a country of 9-10 million people. So that's a mess as far as I'm concerned. But I want to circle back. First things first, and that is the Iranian people. And they're being slaughtered. They're being slaughtered by the thousands. I wouldn't be surprised if we're at 30, 35,000 by now. Hundreds of thousands of casualties. The manner in which these Islamists treat women in particular and young people is just so subhuman. They've been shooting them in the face and the eyes with pellets to blind them. They've been infiltrating, telling them to go down an alley, and then they go down an alley and they murder them. They're burning the buildings that they're in. They're dragging them out of homes. They brought in now thousands of militia, terrorist militia out of Iraq and Hezbollah. So they have their stormtroopers, and then they have the SS that they're bringing in. And these people are unarmed. It is a horrendous thing that's going on. Horrendous. I want you to listen to something Friday night. I'm going to be spending many Friday nights on Hannity's program. Not every Friday night, but many. This went viral I don't do things to go viral. I just do things that I think are right. Let's play this. Cut one. Go.
I feel very passionate about this. We lost 20 to 30,000 students. They're in line to execute many, many more. And when Donald Trump says help is on the way, that is their only lifeline, sadly.
You know, Sean, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to talk to my fellow Americans for a minute. The vast majority of these people who protested and are being murdered and held in prisons, being tortured and raped, are young people the age of your children and grandchildren. You go online and you look at these photos, you see 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds dead, their eyes wide open, looking into the sky. They had to wonder, my God, what's happening to me? Their prisons are filled with thousands and thousands of these young people who want what our kids want on a Friday night in America, to go to a movie, not to be forced to cover their hair and their face, to dance, maybe have a drink if they're old enough to go out on a date. This is what they want. This is Persia. The Persian people are Western people. That's what they are. Do you know what? Iran today is a concentration camp. The lights are off. The electricity is off. It's dark. There's no communication except for Qatar's communication system, Al Jazeera. People are being dragged out of their homes tonight as I speak. They're hiding in their homes. They're being executed summarily. The prisoners, who are the age of your children and grandchildren, are being tortured and raped. It's not 3,000 dead. I just read it's 23,000 dead, and the number's going up. You can't see there. You can't hear there. Maybe they're not hanging people, but they have bullets. They're killing people, and they are abusing these people. Now, people say, what is it our business? Now, sometimes there are things we cannot do. The Uyghurs in China and so forth and so on. You just said that this guy Khamenei has ordered the assassination of our president. They've tried to assassinate our president. He should be taken out. When you try to take out the president of the United States, since when do we tolerate that from any 7th century barbarian primitive? Not today, not yesterday, and we shouldn't take it tomorrow. And we shouldn't be here wondering what America should do. This is a regime that said, yeah, you took out our nukes, but you can't take out our knowledge about nukes, and we're going to keep building them. And we're going to attack the United States. They've killed 1,000 Americans over the years through Hezbollah and Hamas. Now, I ask my fellow Americans, how much more of this crap are we going to take from these terrorists? How much more? They are slaughtering these young people. They're unarmed. They're brutalizing them. We said, protest, we're coming to the rescue. Well, that's what we Americans do when we can. And the president, I believe in all my heart, is going to keep his word, because that's what he does. And when you see these young people in body bags all over the damn place, and when you see these young people staring into the sky, dead, and when these young people are in these prisons saying, my God, where's my mother and my father? Can somebody help me? Do you hear them, America? Do you hear them? I hear them screaming. We need to do something about this.
And Sean agreed. It's a good man. As time goes on, you know, less and less attention paid to this, but in Iran, it goes on. There's a Holocaust taking place in Iran. A Holocaust. And the full extent of it won't be known until that government falls, God willing. Now the president told the protesters to keep protesting, that help would be on the way. And I believe with all my heart he's a man of his word. And there's every indication that help is on the way. Unfortunately, it takes time to bring armies, not one, but multiple, and navies into the region, because they had left for the most part. And you have to be prepared for a breakout of war in case that takes place. But you need to bring in obviously very powerful offensive capabilities, give the president options, and you need to have defensive capabilities. And in the case of Israel, for instance, they need to make sure they have enough missiles to take missiles out of the sky. And so all these things are going on, I believe. This regime needs to go. There was a third threat today from the regime to assassinate our president. You just cannot allow countries to do that. This can't go on like this. It's not going to go on, I hope. I pray. The Iranian people are Western people. They're not Arabs. They're Persians. And the Shah was toppled, not because, as bloated Bannon, that buffoon, says, the Iranians allowed it. It's because Carter allowed it. That's what happened. I get so sick of these buffoons who spew their stupidity to endorse their lunatic agendas. And you'll notice when the going gets tough, there's a lot less of their noise that people want to hear. Because wherever you have an enemy, and the enemy from within joins with them, I haven't heard these people really complain very much about Khamenei, have you? But Qatar's in on it, Saudi Arabia's in on it, Turkey's in on it, they're all in on it. I want you to hear from Reza Pahlavi, who is the exiled crown prince. We're going to address this and continue for a bit, and I want to talk about what's happening to the Kurds now, who have fought by our side against ISIS. Many of them died. These are warriors. Erdogan's trying to wipe them out. Now Syria's trying to wipe them out because they're in Syria and Turkey. We have a lot of friends in the Middle East. In addition to Israel, the Persian people are our friends. The Kurds are our friends. The Jews are our friends. The Christians there, as well as the Jews. A lot of these minorities there, they're our friends. They're our allies. It's amazing, isn't it? The first religion of the big three, Judaism, then Christianity, and a long way off, Islam. And yet they want to wipe out the remaining Jews in the area. They've been wiping out the Christians, and they claim all the land is theirs. Now, isn't that absurd, Mr. Producer? They're the last in. And yet they claim all the holy sites of the Jews and the Christians. Well, they're not their holy sites. They don't belong to them, and they don't get to have them.
Mark Levin.
Making your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
It's an honor to have you here. Thank you very, very much. As each day passes, and if military action is not taken against Iran, support for it is going to diminish in our country. The media already seems bored. And the urgency and the immediacy of what's needed, and it's still needed. People are still being slaughtered. There's a blackout there, so you don't get to watch, you don't get to hear, is still urgent. Still, right now as I speak. And this has been the manner in which that Nazi regime has conducted itself. The other times protests came to the fore, but this time it was even bigger. And if they're not stopped, they are going to slaughter thousands more, tens of thousands more, under the cover of dark over a longer period of time. They've now tested, and they shot it into Siberia with Russia's okay, a 10,000-mile ballistic missile that goes 10,000 miles. Now, that hits America, just so you know. I mean, that's something you need to keep in mind. Certainly I do. I just get very worried about this. I could see early on. I know we're positioning assets. And I know the president's a man of his word, but I'm getting concerned now that the view will be pressed and pressed and pressed that more rational position is not to do anything militarily. And I'm very concerned about this because it's not a more rational position. This revolution in Iran cannot succeed without us. It's that simple. It cannot. Europe's not going to do anything. Israel can't really do anything on its own. It certainly would do it with us. But it takes us. It takes us. And I'm guessing that the president, I have no idea, but he's getting more and more advice, isolationist advice, other types of advice, that it's not worth it. Things have simmered down. And let me play cut one for you from today's press conference. And I believe Iran came up once. Once. Go ahead, Mr. Producer.
So with Iran, they were going to hang 837 people, and I let them be known that, and we let them know that if that happens, that will be a very bad day for them. And they decided not to do it. They didn't hang the people. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future, but supposedly they've taken that off the table. But they were going to, last week, they were going to hang on Thursday or Wednesday. They were going to hang, I think, 837 people, and they didn't hang anybody. So we're just going to have to see what happens with Iran. Is the military option off the table?
I'm not sure why hanging is the operative word here. They're murdering them. They're shooting them. They're butchering them. So if it's the word hanged, there's other ways you kill people, murder people, and you can do it faster. And of course, my count is now they've threatened the life of the president 5 times. 5 times. 5 times. So I don't know what's going to happen. I know what I think should happen. I'm very confident about that. But as time goes on, the urgency of it wears down, doesn't it? Not for the people in Iran, but for our media, which has the attention span of a snail. So I'm deeply concerned about this. The Kurds are being slaughtered by the Syrians, our new friends. They've let thousands of ISIS murderers out of, and would-be murderers out of prison. Turkey's behind the whole thing. But now we're being told that the prison was shut. Thousands of ISIS terrorists have been released, and God knows how many Kurds have been murdered and raped. And these are our allies. These are people who have fought with us through thick and thin. What's the status of that? No idea. I've never been a fan of this envoy, Thomas Barak, as you well know. I've talked about him here. I've posted about him. I think he's a disaster. He makes excuses for Syria, makes excuses for Turkey, makes excuses sometimes for Hezbollah. And please don't tell me he doesn't. I know what I hear. And often trashes Netanyahu. I don't know what his problem is, but I'm not impressed in the least. Just saying. So look, we're going to keep monitoring this. You see what's going on. You can't just switch like a light switch, turn things off and on and say, okay, well, it's better now in Iran. And the lights are off. The communications are still killed. If it's better now, why don't they turn the lights on and turn on the communications? They've already said they're going to keep killing these people. They've already said they're going to execute them. Whether they execute them with a bullet in the back of the head or hang them, dead is dead, in my humble opinion. And it's not so humble. It's really out of fury at this point. So I wanted to point that out. The president has had many, many, many successes over the course of the year. This is his 1-year anniversary as president in the second term. And I want to talk about some of these things. Let's talk about Greenland for a minute, because that has a lot of people worked up. I have an editorial here. Let's see, by the Wall Street Journal. And they pretty much print the position of the establishment Republicans. And it says here, for more than 75 years, the fondest dream of Russian strategy has been to divide Western Europe from the U.S. and break the NATO alliance. That is now a possibility as President Trump presses his campaign to capture Greenland, no matter what the local or its Denmark owner thinks. And it goes on. Now, what's at the core of this? At the core of this is the president is rightly concerned we cannot defend our country if Russia or China in a war takes Greenland, which they can do in about 14 seconds, and uses it as a launching base against the United States and blocks our Navy. Now, people aren't thinking who write these things. You recall, he talked about the Panama Canal. It's ours, and we're going to take it back. What happened? Well, the communist Chinese took over the contract for both ends of the canal. Even though we built it, our people died building it, we spent our resources there, and it was given, quote-unquote, back to the Panamanians under conditions that, we would be able to use it and so forth. Well, the communist Chinese, of all the places in the world, were very interested in managing it and took it over. Well, they don't have control over it anymore. Their companies are not running it anymore. Now, we didn't take the canal, and we don't own the canal anymore because of the stupidity of the establishment Republicans, but we run it. So, okay. So the southern part of our hemisphere, now our Navy can move from the Pacific to the Atlantic and the Atlantic to the Pacific. Okay, look at a map. Go north. What the president sees, and obviously he's been briefed on as well, is that the Chinese and the Russians have key choke points geographically around the world. And one potential area is Greenland. Now, the Dutch are incapable of defending Greenland. NATO's incapable of defending Greenland. It's not even geographically part of Europe. So the president sees that, and he says, okay, we need that to defend ourselves. Very simple. That's how he views things in America's interest. Denmark says, well, that's ours. You can't take it. And yet it is and it isn't. Because it has its own government and so forth. So it's kind of an independent and yet not independent territory in many ways with links to Denmark. So the president says, look, we need to have Greenland to protect the United States of America. By the way, I would say this is exactly why the Israelis are saying, sorry, you're bored of peace, Gaza. Gaza was ours. Gaza can't be populated by Qataris and Turks. They're military. It's too much of a grave threat for us. So I would say that it's similar and even more so in the case of Israel, is it not? I'm very consistent about these things. Very. Logic is logic. So in the case of Greenland, Europe gets up and happy. Why? Because they know they're never going to fight a war with us, so they're very tough when it comes to us. Very tough. So I have an idea. My own idea. Maybe they can save face, and we can protect ourselves. How about a 99-year lease of Greenland to the United States, where we control the military aspects and have access, and we'll share it with them and the Dutch, to their rare earth minerals, of which they have much and of which they do not mine very much. Greenland's a very big place. It's bigger than Alaska. Take a look at it again on a map. It's got almost minuscule population there. It's impossible for them to defend it. So my thinking is, and look, I'm not the negotiator working out details. We do a 99-year lease. We build military infrastructure there as we see fit, docking for our subs, among other things. And we have access to the rare earth minerals that we need. And we don't want the Russians and the Chinese to take that, and they have their eyeballs on that too. In a deal with the people in Greenland, what do they call them? Greenlanders? I don't know. And the Dutch. With an automatic right of renewal for 99 years. Unless we choose not to. I don't know if they go for it or not, but it seemed to me to make sense. So we can go, okay, it's your country, you have it, now this is what we want to do. You think it's a good negotiating position, don't you, Mr. Producer? Well, that's my thought. I've passed it along. I don't know if it'll matter or not. But just a thought as a backup position.
Mark Levin. You're listening to the best of Mark Levin.
If the country's going to get a slam of snow here, I know we are. So I'm in Virginia, Mr. Producer, as you well know, when my residence is in Florida. Now, how ridiculous is that? Seriously, how ridiculous is that? But for reasons I cannot explain, here I be. Here I be at. Virginia. So we will get hammered. I believe it starts Saturday night. And I'm talking to many people who are also going to get hammered. Now, those of you who aren't, you can enjoy yourselves watching the rest of us, but it won't be fun. Now, I used to shovel snow. It was good exercise. But I'm not allowed to shovel snow anymore because it hurts my chest, quite frankly. You know, the bypass a few decades back and 5 stents, I'm just not allowed to. It's very weird, Mr. Producer, because when it's really cold outside and if I walk like 20 yards, your chest feels it because your arteries here tighten up. And that's why they tell you if you have heart issues, do not shovel snow, because it could be the last time you do anything. But I find that to be the case. And I'm under the best of care, one of the best of places, and I have been for decades with fantastic doctors. Nothing going to happen to me. I'm just pointing something out, that you got to be careful out there. And I mean, I'm seeing 10 to 14 inches of snow. I hope they're way off. Fingers crossed, but I don't know. Now, where I live, that'll take about 7 years to clear out, Mr. Producer. Our community, you know, there's only so much they can handle, and you can understand that. This isn't what they do. On our streets, takes a long time because they hit the main streets, so we get stuck here for a while. And I'm sure the same applies to most of you. But, you know, don't hoard stuff. It'll be a few days. I mean, if you got plenty of toilet paper, you don't need to get more. I'm just being quite serious. What are you going to do? Be holed up and have a toilet paper fight? I mean, there's only so much toilet paper you can use in 3 or 4 days. Just saying. Same with milk. People buy tons and tons of milk. Why? Buy a gallon or 2 and you're set. You're set. But people act like they're going to be gone for a month or 2. You're not going to be gone for a month or 2. Quite the contrary. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to talk about, and we shall. But I cannot get my mind off of Iran and the people in Iran, and I know the media have become bored with the topic. They're moving on. I know leading politicians have become bored with the topic. They're moving on. The Democrats barely ever spoke about it in the first place. But the slaughter's going on. It's going on as I speak. And the Kurds are being slaughtered horrifically. Now, this guy that runs Syria is not a reform al-Qaeda terrorist. He's a terrorist. And the Islamo Nazi who runs Iran is a terrorist. Now, the Islamo Nazi who runs Iran, in my humble opinion, needs to be taken out. It's not enough to close down their economy. Their economy is almost closed down as it is. He needs to be removed and sent to his maker so his maker can can send him to hell. Guy's 86 years old. He's got more blood on his hands than one can imagine. And there's more and more stories. You can read them on the internet. People who aren't even protesting, who are on the street, they're just being executed left and right because you have animals let loose now. ISIS is now loose in Syria. Thousands of them. Because of Erdogan and the Islamo Nazi that runs Syria. I see things getting a lot worse in the Middle East, not better. I think Netanyahu and the Seventh Front War was enormously successful. But I think post this war, you can see what Iran is doing, you can see what Syria is doing, and I think we fool ourselves to believe that the guy that runs Syria is some kind of reformer, unless reforming means slaughtering in the most horrendous ways Kurds, our allies, our friends. He's no reformer. He's a mass murderer. And so is Erdogan. And so is Khamenei. And Qatar funds it. Qatar supports it. Saudi Arabia funds it. Saudi Arabia supports it. Again, just because they come to our country and they have meetings and they play the role and so forth and so on, forget it. Forget it. Now, Abul Fazi Yabadabadu, the spokesman for Iran's armed forces, had this to say yesterday, and this is by way of a translator. Cut one, go.
We do not pay attention to Trump's bluster. He knows that if any hand is raised to assault our leader, we will not only cut off that hand decisively and courageously, and this is not just rhetoric, but we will set their world on fire. We will strip them of any security and leave no safe place for them.
See, any foreign government that talks to us this way needs to be dealt with. Needs to be dealt with. Now, I'm hoping still, when the USS Abraham Lincoln finally arrives, and the rest finally arrive, that we will blow this regime off the face of the earth. And I feel like the president is well aware of this. I have no inside information. As time goes on, the whole psychology of this changes. Just because reporters don't report about it, people start to begin to think it's not taking place. It is taking place right now. And in the long run, more people will be slaughtered than were slaughtered in the first 3 weeks of this revolution. And that's the truth. And these are mostly young people. As far as the Kurds go, they're being decapitated. They're being scalped. These are animals. They're not even animals. They're subhumans. These killers. They're subhumans, these Islamist terrorists. I posted one video where one of the ISIS militia was holding up a piece of the scalp of a Kurd he had murdered. The inhumanity is just beyond belief. The inhumanity is just, I don't know how people can tolerate this, even watching it or thinking about it. I just don't. And then they keep threatening our president. They keep threatening us. Since when do we Americans put up with this? I'm quite serious. Since never. Now, we're going to know soon enough if we're going to pound the living hell out of these regimes, which I think we should. There's a great piece in Real Clear Politics by our friend Roger Zakim and Michael Stanton. And Zakim is really a sharp guy at the Reagan Institute. And I want to get into this with you a little bit. We have a lot to cover, and we're going to cover a lot. President Trump's golden defense opportunity, which reminds me, just so the record's clear, the Iron Dome in Israel was developed by the Israelis. They signed a memorandum of understanding with the United States in the late 1990s or early 2000s. We were having a big problem with Congress. Reagan was having a big problem with Congress when he first came out with SDI. They kept cutting the funds and making it very difficult to get it off the ground. It was being mocked, but the Israelis took the opportunity to actually develop it. The Iron Dome was developed by the Israelis, and they have provided the technology to us. In addition, as we've talked about here, they're way ahead of every country on the face of the earth on lasers, and they're now actually putting them in the field. And they're also using them as part of their Iron Dome defense system. So, to our credit, we help provide them with funds. But you see, people don't understand this. We get back 10 times the value that we spend on these things. 10 times the value. They take our F-16, they improve it, and they give that information to our military companies. We have a missile system, they improve it, they provide that information to us. It's one after another, after another, after another. These people are battle-hardened. And sometimes some of the weapons we have that have not been used in the battlefield, they use them first. And they get back to our production companies and they tell them what works, what doesn't work, and how to improve them. And they provide advice on how to improve them. We don't have another ally on the face of the earth like this. But of course Benjamin Netanyahu is going to talk about what they have developed, and why shouldn't he? And I can prove beyond anything that they did this. The Raphael Corporation, the general in charge of these projects, they go from one project to another because they have to be technologically ahead of everybody else if they're going to survive. They have to be. So, truth be told, we will be using technology that the Israelis developed to help build our Golden Dome. And we should be proud of that. They're our ally.
Mark Levin. The Great One makes your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
Other things going on in the world, like this continued relentless assault on ICE. They are trying to beat down ICE. They're trying to beat down the administration. They're trying to persuade you, Mr. and Mrs. America, of the righteousness of their position. They're trying to convince you that this is out of the ordinary, that in fact it's extraordinary, that it's abusive, that they're grabbing citizens off the street. They want you to believe it's Iran, although they don't really criticize Iran. They criticize the United States. And it is appalling what's taking place here. Absolutely appalling. And they're trying to turn the guys in the white hats into the guys in the black hats, and they're trying to attack law enforcement, where these men and women put their lives on the line to protect us. And the militia is getting more and more violent. Peter Schweitzer was on the program last evening. He explained what's taking place. I've explained what's taking place. These aren't spontaneous riots. These are organized. These are funded. The Soros crowd, the Islamist crowd, the Marxist crowd, billionaires in our country, billionaires overseas, dark money, so in many cases you can't trace it back. You see them with the same signs popping up at the same radical left-wing type events. Never are they out there attacking the Ayatollah for what he's doing to the people in Iran. Never are they out there attacking Erdogan or the Islamo Nazi that runs Syria, attacking them for what they're doing. By the way, the Kurds are Muslims. They're just not the right kind of Muslims. You get the point. They don't march in the streets when Christians are being murdered in Nigeria, in the Congo, in the Sudan. Never. And they certainly don't march in the streets when Jews are being attacked or synagogues are being burned to the ground, because they support all that. So these are Marxist Islamists and probably neo-fascists now thrown in with them. No different than the Klan, no different than the neo-Nazis, no different than the red shirts. And this war on ICE is relentless, and another president would back down. Well, actually, any of the Democrats who want to be president right now would not use ICE to deport anybody. Anybody. I mean, they used to say, the Democrats, they're going in there without warrants. Now, warrants for the purpose of deporting, first of all, tracking down, cuffing, detaining, and then deporting, are different than warrants where you go to federal court. They're not going to federal court. They go to immigration courts. And a wide latitude of individuals have the power to get warrants and to enforce warrants under our federal immigration laws. So it doesn't have to be the marshals. It doesn't even have to be ICE. Now, it's amazing to me that the lawlessness in the streets and the people here illegally who are here violating our laws, they demand compliance with our laws. So they use our laws against us, as I tell you they always do, and then they demand absolute conformity with the law, which we have. Where have there been any civil rights violations? Where? Where have there been any violations of due process? Where? Such as it is, and it's not full due process of the sort an American citizen would get. These people are running wildly across our country. They are rogue. They are violent. They're obstructing. They're insurrectionists. That's exactly what they are, insurrectionists. And for some reason, of course, if the president were to use the Insurrection Act, they would compare him to Hitler, even though it's been used 30 times before, since nearly the beginning of the Republic, by Democrats and Republicans alike. It's just crazy. But if the Democrats win this battle, it's over. If we can't deport people who are here illegally, it's over. The battle's over. If the court rules that birthright citizenship is a constitutional right, if it concocts such an argument, and these people are allowed to stay, it's over. It's over. And the next Democrat, look at this Newsom. What a schmuck. What a phony fraud. What a buffoon. What a drama queen. Over in Davos. Guys run his state into the ground. People are trying to find ways to rebuild their homes and palisades. He doesn't give a damn. Illegal aliens have almost as many rights as citizens. In fact, citizens are second-class citizens, and illegal aliens are treated like first-class citizens. He's run up the price of fuel. He's run up the price of everything. He's run businesses out of that state. They turned the greatest state in the Union, that's right, was the greatest state in the Union, into a third world hellhole. That's right, I said it. Now here in Virginia, we've got a governor who ran as a moderate, who was a wolf in wolf's clothing. She's a fraud and a phony. Oh, she worked at the CIA. She must be one of us. Bull crap. It's like that idiot from Michigan, that senator. Another one worked at the CIA. CIA needs to increase its standards. That's what that tells me. But they have a whole array of things they're doing. Massively increasing taxes. Of course, they want some kind of a tax on the rich, so the rich will leave. And what's rich? But they want to tax average folks in Virginia. Increase taxes on food that's delivered to your home. They want to add an additional tax. They want to change the voting system so it's like in California, so Republicans can never win again. Like it is how Mondami won. They want to change it to that kind of a voting system. We don't really have political parties nominating somebody. You have a system where, the top two get this and the next three get that, because they know that the Democrats outnumber the Republicans. And they know that way they get Democrats in the general election running against Democrats. It's the biggest scam. They're so friggin' corrupt, it's not even funny. And so they want to permanently change the way we do business, the way we vote. And then they claim to care about voting. We want voting rights for everybody. No, they don't. No, they don't. Now, there's a report out that 85% of Afghani families with children are on welfare. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? You see that report? 85%. 85%. Take that. Takes the Somalians, rather. What's going on in Minnesota? There's a significant population of Afghanis in Virginia, some of whom are great patriots. I know some. But I'm not talking about the patriots. I'm talking about the others who are on welfare, 85% who have children. Now, it wasn't that long ago that if you were coming to the United States, you couldn't go on welfare. You had to show that you could take care of yourself. I remember when our friend John McCain used to say, who's going to pick the lettuce? Is somebody picking lettuce, Mr. Producer? Are the Somalis picking lettuce or the Afghanis? Who's picking lettuce? The late, great Milton Friedman, who was a hero of mine, he made the point many times. You cannot have open borders in a welfare state. It will destroy the country. Well, we have open borders in a welfare state like nobody's ever seen before. And it's destroying the country. We're doing everything the wrong way. Whether it's the Islamists coming in, the border wide open, whether it's the communist Chinese sending pregnant women over here to have 100,000 babies a year, then they go back with their children, but their children are basically dual citizens of communist China and America, and they have access to everything they want. Why? Because you can't discriminate against citizens, one against the other. Communist Chinese are playing it.
Mark Levin. We're giving you nothing but the best of Mark Levin.
We broadcast sea to sea, every corner of the planet. This is Radio Free America. Radio Free America. We broadcast into blue cities and blue states as well. We broadcast into communist regimes, fascist regimes, Islamo Nazi regimes like Iran. We're heard everywhere. And I'm blessed to have this platform. And I'm even more blessed to have you. Remember that podcast I was telling you about? The video podcast? We're almost there. We are almost there. I'm not going to announce the date yet, but we're aiming into February. Into February. We want to do it right. And that means we'll be on every conceivable platform, from cable TV, broadcast radio, podcast, all through the internet, everywhere. Everywhere. I have to laugh at some of these thugs and goons on the internet, Mr. Producer. Oh, your audience is shrinking. Actually, we're doing spectacularly well on all of our platforms. And we're creating a new one. Well, you're a, what do they call us? You're a boomer. First of all, I don't even know what half this crap means. It's quite a cesspool, the internet, but we do the best we can. That's why certain individuals hang out there and they look for the worst of the worst. When I hang out there, I look for the best of the best. But we love radio here. Oh, the golden age of radio's over. You know when the golden age of radio's over, Mr. Producer? When I leave. And I'm not leaving anytime soon. I just signed a contract about a year ago. So we're going to be here a while. We want to thank all of our affiliates. They're fantastic. We want to thank Satellite Radio. They're fantastic. We want to thank everybody that takes this program, platforms this program. Thank you all. Because at times like this, when things are in turmoil, people listen to the radio because they believe in the radio. They certainly believe in some of us. We've got a lot going on today, a ton. In addition to the issues, we have some guests, and as we get closer, I will tell you who they are. I am praying. I don't always pray. Do you pray a lot, Rich? You do pray a lot? My wife prays every morning, and sometimes at night, I think. I pray now and then. And I'm praying that we will beat the crap out of the Iranian regime and put an end to the slaughter that's been taking place there for almost half a century. We can't interfere everywhere. We can't be involved everywhere. Some places it's just impossible. We're not talking about ground troops, period. But I am talking about taking out Khamenei and that regime. You know, I put on X, didn't I, Mr. Producer? It's time to kill him. Did I say that? A couple days ago, and what did they do? Ban it or something? What did they do? What do they call that? I got slammed for it on X. I get a slap on the hand. Now, if I talk in filthy language, Jew hatred, racism, bigotry, that kind of stuff pretty much hangs there. But I think he needs to be taken out. I really do. And same with all those who've conducted themselves by slaughtering all those poor people. It's just horrendous. And the poor Kurds. The Kurds have been allied with us. The Kurds fought ISIS. You know, we like to take credit. We beat ISIS. We beat ISIS. Well, we did, but we couldn't have done it without the Kurds. And there are Kurds that live in, millions of them. Turkey, Kurds that live in Syria, millions of them. And they are always under attack. And this Al-Qaeda, this fraud that's running Syria, been slaughtering them. And they released thousands of ISIS terrorists. I'm reading all the releases from the various governments, and a lot of it is very one-sided propaganda. I don't get it, but there it is. And there's got to be payback for this. That's my view. Raping these women, killing these women and these young people. It's just there's got to be payback for something like this. And we have really some stupid people with huge podcasts. I mean, this guy, Joe Rogan, is a moron. Absolute moron. I'm sorry, folks. I like him as a UFC announcer. I really do. As a color commentator, he's excellent. But he's very low IQ, very uninformed. Just acts like, yeah, really? Well, tell me more about that. He's saying things now that are dumber than dumb. Do you know he thought there were maybe 500 million Jews in the world? He had to be corrected, of course, but it's not just that. And if you're swinging from Bernie Sanders to Donald Trump, and now you're just swinging in between, you don't have any really core principles, in my humble opinion. But he's not alone. Now, the best that can be said, in my view, about him is he's not Tucker Carlson, who came out the other day and said it would actually be good if Iran had nuclear weapons. And you know what that is? You know what that is, Mr. and Mrs. America? That's a traitor. Let's cut to the chase. That's a traitor. If you think a country that wants to blow us off the face of the earth ought to have nuclear weapons, I don't know why you're here. Why doesn't he have his new home in Qatar? I mean, they're all there. They'll take care of him. You believe that the enemy that talks about attacking us and assassinating our president ought to have nuclear weapons? That would be a stabilizing force? That's a lunatic, absolute buffoon. But it's worse. It's a traitor. And this is why they played him. They played him, the government, the Nazi government in Iran, saying stupid stuff. Now, you know what's interesting? The greatest generation would not have put up with this. They would not have put up with this during World War II. Franklin Roosevelt would not have put up with this during World War II. And I don't think there'd be more than a telephone booth full of Americans who would put up with it. Period. And that's one of the things about podcasting and on the internet and so forth. You get all these government and foreign bots. You get a lot of people watching and listening who hate us. And they don't separate that from, red-blooded Americans. I mean, that regime has killed hundreds and hundreds of Americans. And they ought to have a nuclear weapon? They'd be stabilizing force? Just when you think insanity can't get any worse, it gets worse. And I don't think the guy's been visited by demons. I think he is a demon. But, look, I don't want to spend all day on that. I also think he's becoming increasingly irrelevant. I really do. People are just dismissing him. I do think he ought to, though, put on a white hood and a white sheet. But I don't even think Klansmen think Qatar ought to have nuclear weapons. So he's one of a kind. He's one of a kind, and I mean that in the most, contemptible way possible. Because he just is. Now, before we get to all the other things, I want to get to this guy, Jack Smith. Speaking of contemptible. This guy was horrendous. Let me be blunt with you. Any candidate is free to challenge an election. Any candidate is free to say an election was stolen. Any candidate is free to try and get states or second slates pulled together to challenge an election. None of that is criminal. None of it. None of it. The whole criminalization of President Trump's challenging of the 2020 election is the great assault on the Constitution in our republic. I listened to a lot of this testimony from Jack Smith, and I thought to myself, God, what a low IQ disaster. And then the Democrats, of course. The Democrats. Look what they've become. Look how pathetic these people are. Swalwell. Swalwell should have a bag over his head for what he did to his family. But instead he's now a candidate for governor. That's the way it works over there. That's the way it works. Oh, what was it? Rogan was talking about, I really think that Donald Trump is using, ICE and all the rest of this stuff as a distraction from Epstein. You believe that, Mr. Producer? I'm like, what are you, a dumbass? You don't even make any, what, are you kidding me? Yes. So anyway, here's some Jack Smith, Representative Tiffany, Republican, Wisconsin. The Republicans were great, by the way. Absolutely great. To a man and a woman. Cut one, go.
Is there any historical precedent for an alternate slate of electors to be sent to Congress? Has that ever happened before?
That had happened, not anything similar to this situation, but you're correct. It was in Hawaii. I think it was Hawaii in, I want to say the 1960 election.
So it has happened before that there was an alternate slate of electors that was sent to Congress, which does the electoral count, correct?
there was a prior time that an electoral slate was
twice
sent where there was litigation and recounts going on.
Actually, there's twice that it happened, Mr. Chairman. It happened in 1876 and 1960 that these alternate electors happened. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to introduce the 1960 Hawaii case.
Objection.
With that, I yield to the chairman.
See, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing illegal, not even sinister, about sending in another slate of electors, because ultimately Congress decides. And if you don't send in another slate of electors and you're challenging the electors in that particular state and you win the challenge but you don't have an alternate slate, then you have no electors from that state. So to criminalize this was absolutely outrageous, and he criminalized a lot more than that.